Firstly, to start this video, I just want to say shout out to everybody who got up super early this morning for the Japan versus Iraq stream. That was goated. Not only did we see some very entertaining football, but also, so far, the upset of the Asian Cup. I want to get a pulse check from you guys in the comments down below. Question number 1, how are we feeling about Japan now? Has your belief in the Japanese been shaken? Do you no longer believe they're the #1 favorite for this Asian Cup based on this loss today to Iraq? And for the Iraqis, I just want to ask, how far do you guys think this team can go? I said before the tournament, I wouldn't be shocked if this team made a semifinal, and I have to say, 2 matches in, it's looking like it could happen. Before I say anything else though, guys, make sure you leave a like on the video and hit subscribe so you don't miss daily Asian Cup content on the channel. We are back here tomorrow morning for a live stream, Malaysia versus Bahrain. I'll see you guys then. I hope I'm not oversimplifying things by saying this, but I feel like you could boil down Japan versus Iraq as the difference in desire between these two teams. Because when you look at Iraq, whether it was the starting 11 or the substitutes that came on, all of those guys were giving their all. Meanwhile, you look at the Japanese, and this is the second game in a row where there's this uncomfortable level of complacency and laziness within this team. I think the 4-2 win against Vietnam might have disguised this problem initially. I think people, myself included, saw that as just typical Japanese, cutthroat confidence, but I think it's been exposed here. If there's one thing that I've learned from this Asian Cup so far, it's that if you want to win this thing, you have to be willing to risk it all. This is not a tournament where the bigger teams can go in second or third gear the entire time and sleepwalk into the final. Whether that's because the rest of the Asian continent is caught up or the big teams simply aren't as good as we thought is irrelevant. Japan today against Iraq did display an arrogance, and it came back to bite them. I can't speak to the typical level of performance of the Iraqi players like I can with the Japanese players because I just watched Japan more than Iraq, but there are several guys in the Samurai Blue 11 who have had stink shows of a tournament so far. And I'm not just talking about Zion Suzuki, but it must be said, it was obvious after Vietnam, and it is impossible to ignore now, he is not ready. I don't think most Japanese fans would have had a problem with his inclusion in the Asian Cup squad, but the fact that he's been named the starter is quite puzzling, especially when there are more options in the Japanese pool that are just a little more reliable and a little more seasoned. They're probably not going to get the nerves quite as bad as Suzuki's gotten. I don't know if that's Moriyasu, I don't know if it's injuries, but it's a bad situation for Japan. Hiroki Ito cannot cross the ball. Morita probably had the worst game I've ever seen in a Japanese kit. Wataru Endo had no space whatsoever. Kubo looked like he was 65%. There was a lot of problems today. Now, some people would take that and be like, oh, you're taking away from Iraq's win. No, I'm not. I'm just being critical of the Japanese squad. And I'm being very critical of Moriyasu because at the end of the day, he's responsible for these results. If the Japanese national team does not have the right mindset to win this Asian Cup, guess what? That's the manager's fault. If you put in a young kid as goalkeeper and he's not ready, guess what? That's your fault. If you're playing guys in the lineup who are not 100% fit and ready to go and they cannot perform, guess what? That is your fault. So there's a lot of eyes on Moriyasu. There's a lot of pressure now for this Indonesian game, and we'll get into the Indonesians next, who got a very impressive win against Vietnam, but I do want to talk about Iraq a little bit more first. Now, I have to say, there are some of y'all on Deadball TV who have been subscribed who need to drop an apology for Ayman Hussein in the comments. Put some respect for the joint top goal scorer at the Asian Cup. My man's got a volley and 2 towering headers in this Asian Cup so far. I don't think he can be stopped. Outside of that, though, the entire Iraqi back line was completely locked down today. I don't even know how this is possible, but they played better defensively against Japan than they did against Indonesia. I don't know if that's a credit to Indonesia, who are looking better than we originally thought. Maybe Japan aren't quite as good as we thought, or maybe Iraq just got up extra hard for this game. Or maybe all 3 are true. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. I really think the Iraqi depth is being mad disrespected here. The fact that they can leave guys like Doski and Mohamed Ali on the bench, guys who starred in the first game and still get a result against inarguably the strongest team in Asia, that is crazy. What's crazier is the 2 guys that took the aforementioned gentlemen's spots in the starting 11, Ayman Hussein and Yahya, were fighting each other for man of the match. My guy Al Amari with another really good game for Iraq. Bayesh can play as a winger or in the center of the pitch. Doesn't matter. Man's going to get you 3 points. I mean, these guys are the real deal. I'm telling y'all right now, nobody wants Iraq in a knockout game. Did you see how much it meant to the players? They collapsed after the game. They want this trophy. They did not come here to get 4 points in the group and then bow out early, okay? These guys want it all. And now I'm looking at Japan, Korea, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Iran. How bad do you guys want it? Because if you don't want it as much much as the Iraqis, they're going to take it from you. And speaking of how bad do you want it, we got to talk about Indonesia beating Vietnam 1-0. This is a result that before the tournament kicked off, I thought it was going to be a draw. And if I had to give a team the edge, it would have been Vietnam. But after I saw both teams play, you guys know earlier in the live stream today, I said I'd probably give the edge to Indonesia because the physicality of Indonesia, I think, was superior to Vietnam. I think they have a better midfield than Vietnam, and I think Vietnam's most dangerous player, Bac Din, wasn't available. And to be honest, my personal bias against Philippe Troussier probably played in that decision as well. I said it after the first game, man, you got to back my guy Shin Tae-yong. What he is doing with Indonesia is incredible. He is building a project. They are ahead of schedule just by being at the Asian Cup and picking up a few points. They didn't even really need a win. That is ahead of schedule for the youngest team at this tournament. The fact that they have beaten Vietnam is equally an indictment of Vietnam, but also a compliment to Indonesia. I thought Marcelino was unplayable today. By far the best offensive player on the pitch from both teams. Justin Hubner as well. Good Lord. Him and Sandy Walsh, bro, they were locking things down at the back. I'm looking at the stats now, and this is what I mean by the difference in physicality. You had 24 fouls from Indonesia, 8 from Vietnam. I do want to give credit to Vietnam because I do think they recovered in the second half and they played much better, actually created a few chances, actually tested Indonesia, but that first 45 minutes was absolute trash. The fact that Vietnam was only down 1 goal and that goal was to a cheap, stupid penalty was very lucky for the Vietnamese. And look, I'm not gonna lie, things were looking bad, but at least I was telling myself at the time, okay, it's been disastrous. Things literally could not get worse for Vietnam, but you're only down a goal. And now I'm looking at Philippe Troussier and I'm saying, hey bro, you won the Asian Cup before, let me see what you got. And to his credit, there was a bit of a response, like I said, but then these guys just gassed out, and it was kind of eerily similar to the Japan game where it's like the 75th minute, man, the Vietnamese had nothing left to give. I mean, you literally saw their most dangerous offensive weapon pull a hamstring going for a sprint, you know, like, and after that point, bro, I kind of knew it was done for Vietnam. And I believe, based on what I've seen online, that Vietnam are the first team eliminated from the Asian Cup. Can we get a like on the video for Vietnam? RIP. Now, I'm not praying on the Vietnamese downfall whatsoever. Please do not take anything I've said as disrespect to this team. They are also very, very young and riddled with injuries. And I think Vietnam can take some pride in that second half performance, but at the end of the day, they didn't have enough. Next up, they have Iraq. And even if Iraq rotate the squad, like I said at the beginning of the video, their depth is crazy. I think it's going to be a tough game. Is Vietnamese national pride enough to carry them to a victory against the Lions of Mesopotamia? I don't think so. The way that Indonesia was cutting up Vietnam today gives me zero hope for that national team. Next up, Indonesia has Japan, and I think most Indonesian fans probably thought their Asian Cup campaign was going to be over by now. The way that I'm choosing to look at this as a biased Japan fan is I think that losing to Iraq is going to be the wake-up call that Japan need. And even though Indonesia got a very impressive win against Vietnam, Vietnam in current form are one of the worst teams at this Asian Cup. So let's go ahead and give Indonesia flowers for this result. But I don't think any reasonable person can look at Indonesia and say, they can beat Japan. I do foresee a pretty big bounce back win for Japan. I do think they'll win something like 3-0, something along those lines. You guys let me know your score predictions in the comments. And finally, we'll get to the biggest snoozer of today. Iran won, Hong Kong 0. I don't really want to say a lot about this game. I also only watched about 45 minutes of it, but it looked like Iran got the goal and they decided to sleepwalk the entire rest of the game. I thought Hong Kong looked pretty similar to how they did against the UAE in that there's not a lot of offensive buildup. It's kind of very quick progression, try to get a shot off. And I guess I'll have to give them credit for the mentality of the team to go out and play their style of football, despite being on paper one of the bottom 2 teams at this tournament. Y'all, I'm looking at the stats now. Less than 100 passes for Hong Kong in this game, yet they had 9 shots. So that's pretty much what Hong Kong football looks like now. It's fast, exciting, high risk, but at the end of the day, they've lost 2 games of the Asian Cup. Now they have Palestine in the final game, and this was always going to be the most winnable game for Hong Kong, but I think based on how Palestine has looked, they're the serious underdogs in this. If Palestine for the first time in their freaking lives can learn how to put the ball in the back of the net, they will beat Hong Kong. And for Iran, I'm not too worried about this. I think every big team is entitled to have somewhat of a stinker in a tournament, and I think we've seen that from everybody except Qatar. Australia didn't look good against Syria. They arguably should have tied the game. We had Iran sleepwalking today against Hong Kong. Japan obviously lost. I mean, we'll see how South Korea looks tomorrow morning. My bad that my entire face was illuminated the entire time. I didn't notice till now. We're just going to roll with it. If you guys want to get up early and watch another live stream for the Korea game, you can head to Beam Beam Ballers on YouTube. I'll put their link down below in the description. That is Albert Kim's YouTube channel where he will be doing a stream with his buddy. So go check that out if that sounds interesting to you. I guess the good thing about Group C is that Iran versus UAE on the the final match day is actually going to mean something, because UAE could technically still win the group. To all my Persian friends out there, I wouldn't get too stressed about how Iran played today. I think everybody needs to get a bad game out of their stomach. They were really good in game 1. Will they bounce back in game 3? Probably. And I guess look on the bright side too. You guys didn't play very well and you still got 3 points. The Japanese cannot say the same. And if Iran play like they did against Palestine in the first half of that game, I think they will beat the UAE. That is the video, guys. Make sure you leave a like and don't forget to subscribe so you do not miss daily Asian Cup videos here on Deadball TV. Check out the social media links in the description of this video so you know our live stream schedule. We'll be live on the channel tomorrow morning at 8:30 for the Malaysia game. We'll see y'all then.